Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com. Today I want to talk to you about the wisdom of speaking less and listening more. Proverbs 21:23 says, "Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles." This is something you can see demonstrated countless times throughout life, in maybe your own life, but also other people's lives, where you see people just talk themselves into problems. I knew someone who had been talking to one of the DAs in a very big area, and he was asked about the people he knew were guilty that he wasn't able to get any convictions on. And it was only two people. But the interesting thing these two people had in common was they wouldn't talk. They never said a word. They refused to speak. Everybody else talked themselves into trouble. Now, I'm not giving you legal advice, or especially if you've done something wrong, but this is what happens in life. Even if you're innocent, you're a good person, you can talk yourself into a world of trouble. It also does not demonstrate wisdom because you're not hearing. You may misunderstand what the other person's even trying to say, and you're trying to answer a matter before you hear it. And for you, that's a folly and a shame. That's what Proverbs says. You know, there is a time when you need to answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. That's what Proverbs 26:5 says. But the verse before it also says, "Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him." So you have to use wisdom. Sometimes you don't speak. Let them be foolish, because if you answer them, you give any kind of response, you make them feel wise. You make them feel like they got one on you. But sometimes you need to respond, lest you also be like him. You become a fool in your own folly. And obviously today with social media, there's a lot of anonymity and people just come along trolling. They're not even real. They're not even sincere with what they believe. They're just trying to get people stirred up and riled up. Why would you respond to that? Why would you speak and give a discourse against something when the person doesn't even mean anything they're saying? If you have any question, it's much better to just hold your peace and hear a matter out. You don't have to respond to everything. This is one of the things people don't seem to understand. They think they have to respond. They feel if there's a pause, they have to fill the dead air with some words. That just gets you into trouble. I knew about 20 years ago, when I was early on in my eBay businesses, that we would go to these meetings where a bunch of eBay sellers got together. There was probably a few hundred of them in the Dallas area. And we would discuss things, and they would have certain topics, but you would talk with different people. And there were certain people there who were good sellers, but they would babble all their trade secrets. Everything about their business, their sources, everything. And it was an amazing trove of wealth for those who were willing to listen. And yet they were running themselves out of business. And so many of those people fell by the wayside. Because instead of holding their peace, yes, you want to help those coming up, you want to help people, but just babbling out everything you've ever known at any point in time is not wise. Sometimes it does harm to people because you don't need to be telling people about wholesale sourcing when they can barely handle retail arbitrage. They're just going to go into deep debt, get a bunch of garbage inventory that they have nowhere to liquidate. And that's happened. Obviously, if you've been in that kind of business, you know that issue. You've probably dealt with that yourself. But that can happen very easily. And you may mean well, but you're not giving them wisdom for their particular situation, which is why you have to listen. You have to be willing to listen, hear where somebody's coming from, and then give wisdom as you can. Sometimes the best thing to do is not to say anything. And that's very hard today because everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got to give their 2 cents. They got to be real and all this nonsense that they think is something they got to do, or that they somehow perceive not having some bombastic opinion about something is to be weak. And that's not the case. Most often it is wise to be quiet. How many times have you known foolish people, people who know barely anything, and they have big opinions about a lot of stuff that they know nothing about? I know one person that I've told that they are the most uninformed know-it-all I've ever known, because they just babble about every subject and they almost always are wrong. Almost always are wrong. But they talk, and there's no wisdom available. There's nothing there. It's the old saying that it's better to be a fool and be silent than to talk and let everybody know it. If you don't know something, that's all right, and you can ask questions. One of the things I've known from knowing many, many tremendously successful, hundreds of millions of dollars net worth people, is that they ask a lot of questions. They don't go around patting themselves on the back, talking about how they got it all figured out. They'll ask common people questions. People that should be asking them questions, but they're so foolish and ignorant that they don't. But the wealthy person is asking them questions. Oh, really? How do you do that? Oh, what about this? Because they're always learning, always growing, and they never think they got it all figured out. That's a tremendous thing. When you can humble yourself, realize you don't have everything figured out, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You can constantly be learning and growing and maturing and advancing in your wisdom. And yes, share your wisdom as you can. Share it liberally if people want to hear. But make sure you're not casting your pearls before swine. Make sure you're not giving that which is holy unto the dogs, as Jesus said. You have to be very clear about that. Because there's people that don't want to hear, so why are you giving them unsolicited advice? There's people who absolutely refuse to listen. Why are you telling them anything about something they don't care to listen to you tell them about? There's no wisdom in that, and it doesn't help anyone. And very often when you're quick to speak, you haven't heard the matter. So you're really speaking before you've heard the totality of the issue that is at hand, and you're just running at the mouth. A great swelling of words, but no wisdom involved. A wise person doesn't do that. A wise person will hear a matter, ponder it, and then speak. You may think you have everything figured out, but you should at least give heed and listen. Consider the matter first before you choose what you're going to say. And it should be a choice. It shouldn't be just running, flowing, vomiting words from your mouth. There should be conscious thought and decision making and pondering and even prayer. We say, Father, give me wisdom in this. And then you could speak. He can fill your mouth with the proper words to speak. You're not just babbling out your own thoughts and opinions of men, but you're giving true wisdom from your Father. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.